Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Axom, a Celtic State of Mind on a Tuesday afternoon. It's the bulletin. It's that part of Christmas, gents, where you don't know what's happening. We've passed Christmas Day. It's now lead up to New Year. Patrick, me and you definitely don't know what's happening because you and I are both stuck in isolation. The Axom teams had as many COVID call-offs this week as the Celtic team, I think. I'm one of them, by a few other guys, but we're all fine. And I've not got long to go. Lawrence, first of all, have a nice Christmas.
Listen, it was brilliant that the team is rising to adversity, isn't it? You know, no matter what's thrown us, injuries, COVID, whatever. Angie's aces, just keep getting the results and keep marching on. First trophy of the season in the cabinet, 6 points off the top of the league, second half of the season to go. And hopefully an exciting transfer window for us.
Yep, fingers crossed. There's a couple of late presents from Mr. Claus in the transfer window for us, Patrick. How about yourself? Good Christmas and a disappointing evening in Paisley, which we'll touch on, and then obviously that perked us up that wee victory up in Pairs on Boxing Day.
Yeah. Managed to enjoy Christmas before getting the sort of dreaded text that you have to isolate. But no, it was a bit of a bummer in Paisley, but obviously a good performance and a good result up in Perth. And, you know, I think our injuries contributed to those results, but I think, the teams that we played and the pitch sizes also contributed. St Johnstone certainly looks like a bigger pitch. They're the worst team in the league at the minute, so just need to keep on going. Still only 6 behind, so plenty of games to play, and we're definitely still in it.
Yep, there's plenty of games to play. I think it's 18 games in the league. We've still got to play 3 of them, a Glasgow Derby game, so it is all to play for. Lawrence, we'll kick off with the game that we previewed last Tuesday. In Paisley, we've not been on since then. It was a frustrating evening for Celtic. 83% possession, 30 shots in goal. What was it last week? A lot of people said it was flashes back to Livingston. That game where we just couldn't seem to put the ball in the back of the net. It was very similar to that. Was there a growing concern for you in that game, or was it just that we've probably hit that point in the season, got far too many players out in the squad, and we're relying on people that we just don't have at this moment in time, and we need some of the big players to step up in a game like that? It just never happened.
Yeah, listen, it's not the first time a Celtic team's had a cup final hangover. I think it's a cumulative of the number of games we've played, the injuries, COVID. I just think it was just a combination of everything. The team didn't play particularly badly. I mean, you've just set the stats, 30 shots in goal. We could be doing with a few options up front. I think maybe that's a big thing. But I'll tell you what, the weekend there, Dawson didn't do his chances any harm today. He came on, he kept it simple, he moved the ball on, and then he moved and got into position again. Unlucky not to score, he puts a wee bit more in that. It's back in the net. So I think it's probably a reflection on just the amount of injuries, COVID, and I'm probably a bit tired with the number of games and having the cup final, maybe a bit of hangover there. But, it's been a cracking December, let's be honest. It's one draw. Ange's got his way ahead of where we expected to be.
Yeah, I think perspectives they did at this point, Patrick, because Lawrence touched on there. It's 3 months undefeated domestically in Scottish football. Cup final hangover. I think that's something to look at. I mean, if you go back to that game at Motherwell 4-3, absolutely fantastic game, one of the most exciting games of football I've ever been at. But again, the shades of that Celtic team, that invincible Celtic team that even showed their vulnerabilities post cup final. On what Lawrence is saying in terms of perspective, there was a lot of reactionary stuff going around right away on Wednesday and after the draw in Paisley. Is it about just keeping a gauge? You can't go from being, the hero and your uncle on the Sunday when you win the cup to then he's the bad guy in the Wednesday evening.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you get a cup final hangover, it's probably only going to affect you once every season because there's no game after the Scottish Cup final. But it's just unfortunate that we've already dropped points in 5 games this season. That you can't. It's not that you can't afford to drop points in a 6th. It's just that when you're only halfway through the season, it's not a great sign. I know we didn't quite get proper Ange ball until after those 5 games, but I think we're still well within the title race. I don't think it's a a massive setback. I think it just puts more pressure on us to win the games that come immediately after the 3-week break. And I'm hoping that can help us, because I think every time we're under pressure, we've rose to the occasion. As you say, we're 3 months unbeaten. Ever since we won 2-1 away at Aberdeen, we've been phenomenal the vast majority of the time. I think we've deserved to win every game. Even in Europe, we've deserved to get a result in all games, I think, ever since that Aberdeen game. So I think if we just keep playing the way that we're playing, it'll certainly be competitive. I've always said it'll be tight by the end of the season. I'll stick to my prediction that Celtic will win the league, but if we keep playing the way we're playing, it'll be tight at the top.
Lawrence, one of the comments coming in here early on, sorry Patrick, going to cut off a bit of your head for this one. We're struggling with so many players out, there isn't much Ange can do about that. What Ange does need to learn is how to deal with 11 men behind the ball. That's a puzzle he needs to figure out. Lawrence, do you think that's a puzzle he's not figured out? Because I would say at times at Celtic Park he's managed to open those teams up. Yeah, we've had bits of luck in those games. If you look at Ross County and St Johnstone at Celtic Park, and we get the Vickers deflected shot, which leads to us going to get the extra couple of goals after that, and then you've got the one that leads to J.K. Marcus's goal. Do you think that low block is something that Ange's having an issue with, or it's just, as you say, all those factors that led to that drawing and Paisley, just COVID ravaged, injury ravaged, cup final hangover, and the amount of games that we'd played?
Look, listen, I think it's kind of the hardest thing to play against, isn't it? But when a team isn't interested in scoring against you, all they want to do is stop you from scoring. He's figured it out sometimes. Without so many players through either injury or COVID, it makes it harder. Would we have a better chance with Jota on the park? Arguably, 100% fully fit Kyogo. Definitely, Giacomakis to change something could have done. But I mean, look at the game there. He changed his formation. We looked a lot fresher. With the two strikers in the park. Abada, he seemed to benefit from it. So maybe that will open. Yeah, I think that formation was more or less forced on him just because of who was fit. So it shows that there is another formation that this team can play and get results. But yeah, it's always going to be hard to beat a team that just sit 11 behind the ball, isn't it? You're looking for maybe a wee deflection, a bit of luck, a second ball. So we'll drop points, against teams like that. But I think Ange's got is winning the majority of games where teams have put 11 behind the ball. It's just, sometimes you need a wee bit of luck that we didn't have. I mean, 30 shots on goal you'd expect to get. I don't know what the XG was, but I would say we'd expect to take a couple. Is Patrick got to come in with the XG from
Patrick's a top man. He even got a book about it for Christmas, son. You go.
Oh, God. I think it was 2.1 on versus 0.3 or something. I'm not sure.
There you go.
So, it's roughly that every game anyway.
Yeah, there we go.
It's the way Ange's got his playing, isn't it? Create lots of chances and don't concede chances.
Yeah,
so
basically.
Yeah, that links into this next point, Patrick. I'm going to come at you in this because it's something that, you say to me, you can't mix things up, because I was saying, maybe have a wee shot now and again outside the box, and you get guys like Beaton and stuff. Monty's one of our regular Tuesday contributors, and he need to start shooting from outside the area, quick 1-2 shot. Patrick, is that something you think Ange Postecoglou's team needs to do, or they just need to keep doing the same things that keep working and creating, consistent XGs like that, which do show that it leads to, and again, even in Sunday there in Boxing Day, when the squad was COVID ravaged with players, that we maybe wouldn't expect to be first team starters, but still stuck to the same kind of game plan. Yeah, as Lord had touched on there, it was good to see an adaptability in terms of formation, but we kept doing the things that we know works, and we got our just good for it.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't have a problem with the team doing it every once or twice, especially if it's like the 80th minute and you're drawing 0-0 with St Mirren. Ange probably disagrees though. I mean, Ange seems to think that his system works, and it does, in fairness to him. And just because it's not working after 80 minutes doesn't mean it's not going to work after 94. He might think, and he's probably right, after you've seen it in Ross County, it's not worked yet, but it will work in the end. And it has worked. I don't know how many games we've played since Aberdeen. I think it's probably 12 or 13. We've got 11 wins and 2 draws. And the 2 draws are just from us not being able to break down teams. It's not from conceding too many goals, it's from not being able to score. So, I don't think I've got a problem with, Roger Turnbull, Beaton, McGregor shooting from, 20, 25 yards if we're struggling a bit. But I'm not even sure that would have worked against St Mirren, if I'm being honest, either, because they had so many guys behind the ball. You probably couldn't get a shot on target. I know McGregor curled one to the left-hand side, if I remember correctly, but I think it was just a perfect storm. Your front three are out, Turnbull's out, Rogic was having an off day. That's your 5 key players. So, just think you've got to pick yourself up and move on.
Yeah, no, 100%. Lawrence, is this something you would like to see us do? It's a tactic we saw many a time under Neil Lennon and other Celtic managers, or as Patrick says, there is it just a case of keep trying to go at the end and keep trying to break things down. I mean, if you look at the game in Dingwall, it's a great example of what you're saying there, Patrick, is you keep trying to do the same thing until 97 minutes, which is probably still upsetting a lot of people out there in Scottish press and a lot of other football teams, but you keep doing the same thing and eventually you get your goods for it. Or would you like to try and see a bit of route one?
In 3 seconds. Listen, I
Yeah.
think shoving a centre half up is it's a sign of desperation, but I guess that's where you are with 10 minutes to go sometimes. You're in a title race. You're shoving a centre half up. We're only doing that because injuries. Let's be honest. You might, Giacomakis was fit or a Yeti. You're more likely to throw another striker on if we had that option. How good are our centre halves? Well, they don't have a load of goals. We get enough corners in a game. So is it to suggest that they're really going to get on the end of something? I don't know. Maybe I know Tony Haggerty suggested throwing Anthony Ralston up front after he's 96 and 3 seconds minute winner. But for me, just throw a centre half up. It's a bit of desperation, isn't it? Just throw him. He's a big boy. He might go on the end or something.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm just saying, I'm just saying, well, look, we've got a system that creates chances. Who's more likely to score? Arguably your forwards are more likely to score because I guess that's why they're forwards and not centre halves.
Yeah, and that's something I've got a lack of just now, Lawrence, as centre forwards. And again, as you touched on there, we're going to get on to Joey Dawson, but somebody of his calibre might have actually been a good shout last week, just in terms of trying to break that down and using a bit of muscle power up there. What we're going to do with the comments, where we're going to have a chat about it, to get your thoughts on it, is Leila Bada, right winger or centre forward? It's a big question just now. We've seen him score a brace at the weekend at McDermott Park, so let us know your thoughts on this one. Leila Bada, centre forward or right winger? Patrick, I'm going to come to you first on this. I think his play through the middle is excellent at times. We can see that he can score a goal. A lot of the goals he scored early on under Ange were, as a result of drifting inside. What is your thoughts on Leila Bada now? Have we just been playing him as a winger because we've seen him that he could take on a man, and is it time to maybe put that to rest and start playing him as that kind of second striker just now with Kyogo for the Hashi? Not in terms of up front, by the way, in terms of his, bit of squad state for there if Kyogo's not available, that Abada's there. But if again, we played 2 up there and it worked.
I think it's worth trying. We've tried Beaton at centre half. We've tried Kyogo out wide. We've tried McGregor at left back. It's worth having a go. He's been struggling for form, I think, for the last 3 months outright, and I think he's got pace, and he's still struggling to beat a man. And then he's played through the middle 2 games now, and although he didn't score at St Mirren, he was unlucky, I thought, because he was just a few inches away from getting on the end of some good crosses, especially towards the end of the game. And their keeper made a few good saves. And then obviously on Sunday there, I think it was Sunday, he scored 2, but he could have had 4 or 5. He certainly had at least 2 other clear-cut chances where I thought he was unlucky. He sort of puts it high, and it's an okay range for the goalkeeper. So I don't know if that's just St Johnstone being poor and giving up too many chances, but he's fast. He can make those runs. Roger can beat on. We'll find him no bother. So I think it's worth giving it a try.
Lawrence, what's your thoughts on this? Alan Robertson's come in and said he thinks that Abada is better through the middle. What's your thoughts on it? Are we getting carried away because we've saw him, scored goals against Ross County and St Johnstone teams that are at the bottom of the table, or do you think naturally he just looks a lot more comfortable up there as a striker?
I think, see, when he plays as part of the front three, he's meant to make up the second striker at times. When the ball's out on the left, he's meant to come in to, I suppose, level with the right hand post. So I think maybe some of the chances were the fact we're playing 3-5-2. It was a bit fresher. I thought the last game there that some of the balls were coming in a lot quicker. We were moving the ball quicker from our wing backs, if you like. So I think that's maybe got a bit to play on it. He can definitely play through the middle, but I know he scored, but geez, he didn't have missed some amount of chances. But we forget the guy's only 20 years of age. He's got some return already in terms of assists and goals. I think he's going to be inconsistent. He's arguably he's a second choice out in the right, isn't it? If you've got Forrest fit, you'd expect him to play in front of him. But listen, he's scoring goals and getting assists. You've got to be happy with that. Definitely the 3-5-2. I think he looks comfortable as part of a striking partnership. I said Joey Dawson when he came on. I thought he had a great game. He kept it simple, a couple of nice touches, just moved the ball on, made his runs, and I thought he should have scored. He just needs to put a wee bit more on that, and it's in the back of the net, isn't it? So Ange certainly, he's getting performances out of players, and it doesn't seem to matter what's getting thrown at us. The team's still creating chances and limiting the opposition, which I guess is what Ange's system is all about, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. Patrick, what's your thoughts on this one? Two up front. We did see us go to that at the weekend there. I think, Ange Postecoglou was forced into that. But I stick on for a 4-3-3. We know that. But, as Lawrence mentioned there, and some of the comments coming here, Maida's probably likely to come in here in January. And, Lawrence was talking about Forrest being that stick on the right-hand side. There's a possibility that with Maeda coming in, we might see Jota moved over to that side. He can play either or wing. But when Maeda does come into the building, where does that put Abada's position? Because to me, if you've got a fit Jota and a fit Forrest, it's likely that both of those guys start the wing for Celtic. So is it Abada there in the bench? Obviously, versatile. We know, if a winger gets injured, we can bring him on there. But would it be better to look at him as a second striking option, or a partner Kyogo Furuhashi, or to go into a two if that was something that the manager thought was something that could be productive for us?
Yeah, I mean, if you get Maeda, Forrest, Jota and Kyogo, that's all guys looking for three places. I think Abada's at the very best fifth choice there for only three places. So I think second place to Kyogo, it probably isn't a bad place for him to be at 20 years old. He's got 18 goal contributions, 10 goals, 8 assists in 5 months. So a phenomenal return for a 20-year-old who's been, he's not played every game. He's been dropped a few times. I'm not sure if Forrest is automatically ahead of Abada. I know we're talking about playing him as a striker, but if Ange chooses to play him at right wing, the stats back him up. A lot of people say about Forrest, he scores goals, he gets assists without actually playing too well. And the same can be said for Abada. It's a flip of a coin in my opinion, out in the right. But I think if Kyogo's out for another period of time, 3-4 weeks, I'd like to see Abada being given the jersey and say these 3-4 games are yours and just see what you can do. Because I think, especially in a bigger pitch, I think he'd do quite well.
Yeah, no, I think he would, especially at Celtic Park when you're going to have, I was going to say we'll get a lot more of the ball, but we're having a lot of the ball when we go and play away games still. But as you say, if you get the balls out the flanks and you're stretching the game a wee bit more, those runs that Abada seems to be making, is only going to get even better. And those runs, Lawrence, were matched at the weekend by a midfield diamond that a lot of people, I think, going into the game were worried about the pace of the three of them and Beaton, McCarthy and Roderick. I know you're a fan of James McCarthy since he arrived at the club. I thought he was excellent at the weekend. I thought Beaton, looked as if he'd get a new pair of slippers for his Christmas. from Big Ange, and Roderick again, sublime for some of the assists once again. With players like that in midfield, and the creativeness that we've got up front, I think now's the time for McCarthy certainly to kick on. We're seeing Beaton we've got to seem to have a new Beaton back in at Celtic in central midfield. Obviously, we'd used him a lot at centre half, but how much does our forward play depend on the guys behind them?
Listen, hugely. The way Ange plays, especially the fullbacks pushing on, you're looking for your defensive midfielder to stop a lot of the chances, and I think McCarthy does that. He's just got the quality, isn't he? He knows where to be. His ball retention's very good. I think it's probably his best game since he came in. Hopefully, I know we're in the break now, but rumours are that Turnbull's going to be out for another month after we start playing again. It's a chance for McCarthy to come in and nail that down. Hopefully Callum's back. You've got Beaton, you've got Roderick. At least we've still got cover in midfield and they're playing well. But Beaton's shown it, defensive midfielder, or even more centrally, he can do it. What a finish for his goal. It's been a while. He used to score some crackers, but it's been a while. Absolutely revitalised getting to play in his preferred position, isn't he? Tom Roderick, if Roderick plays well, we generally win. So I think another wave of COVID coming in. I know we've been affected. I went out with it and we've been affected with injuries. We're going to need everybody in there. Turnbull's going to be out for a while. So you're now looking at Beaton, McCarthy, McGregor, Roderick. I'm not too sure who else will come in that can play in midfield. But I think one of the Japanese boys that's coming in can. But yeah, some of the quality of the balls that both Beaton and McCarthy were putting through to the front too, but were absolutely cracking. But yeah, hopefully James kicks on for this.
Yeah, Hatate and Ideguchi, I think can both play centrally. Lawrence, I think Hatate's a bit versatile. He's certainly in the Ange mould of players, Patrick, somebody that can play all over the place. But as you touched on it, Kyogo, just got the start up here. Kyogo, Jota and Abada have so far directly contributed to 55 goals since joining the Hoops, which is a phenomenal return for three players. So throw that one out into the comments, letting hear your thoughts. Full strength team at Celtic. What is the most full strength front three that we can play? Who are the three players that you would play up front for Celtic? We'll get your comments in and we'll chat about that. On that though, Lawrence, we saw, Joey Dawson came in. I think it'd be unjust of us not to give him a mention. Nephew of Michael Dawson, I never knew that, the old Spurs captain. He had a tear in his eye, actually. I only saw that article that he was bursting with pride to see him come up. We've taken him from Scunthorpe. He came up. It was a player that we put right into that B team. He's not been near the first team before now. Again, it's a real sign of positivity under the manager that he's given youth players that chance. I know at the weekend we were stretched in terms of injuries, COVID call-offs, etc. But it's still good to see young players like that given a chance in the first team, and it'll only help further his development at Celtic.
Definitely. I mean, we signed him from Scunthorpe. Scunthorpe's youngest ever player. Would suggest he's got, if he's setting records, there's something about him. Obviously signed for the B team, but that's how short we are. We had to call him up, and honestly, I don't think he looked too far out of place. He really unlucky not to score. He kept it simple, which I liked. He wasn't trying to do anything fancy. Just get the ball, move it on, make his run. Get the ball, move it on, make his run. He looks a fairly big bit of a boy. He looks about 6'2" or something. So maybe he's going to be an option. I'd go as far to say he actually showed more on the weekend than Giakoumakis has showed for us so far this season. So arguably he could be the backup striker now, couldn't he? Ahead of Giakoumakis and Ayeti. Really happy what I saw of them. I know St Johnstone are bottom of the table for a reason, but yeah, the other players I've got to go, well, look, just keep working away, and Ange is willing to give you a chance, which hopefully has an effect on Karel Moko and his decision. 5 months left in his contract. I'm sure we've got another one in front of him. I know Lenny seemed to bomb him out, and then Kennedy gave him a few games pre-season. Ange was obviously a fan of his. He was playing him. I think it was Bristol he got injured against, wasn't it?
Yep, Bristol City.
Hopefully he signs, because he's a boy that we say we've been hearing about forever, isn't it? It's and you don't really want to lose that kind of talent from what he showed pre-season. Back in training next week, he should be available for selection then by the time the break's over. The early break is over, should I say.
Yeah. We'll touch on Karamoko Dembele because, as you touched on there, Lauren, he's going to be back in training, which I think is an exciting prospect, Patrick. We were talking about wingers. He seems to be the forgotten man this season just due to the fact that horrendous challenge put into him in pre-season and having him out for so long. But we know he's a talent. We know he's got something different from the other wingers there, and he likes a goal because he scored in that game in St Johnstone, Scott Brown's last game at Celtic Park. So we've seen him do it now. But on Joey Dawson, Patrick, what was your thoughts on his performance? And in terms of that pathway direct to the first team, does it now show that if you're any player in that B team has got a chance of stepping up to this first team under Andrew Saw, when Moffat get the shout up? And do you think it's working, or would you still prefer maybe some of the guys there that if they are wanting to get them out and send them out somewhere, you'd rather they go to somewhere like what Luca Connell's doing at Queen's Park? I've not stuck him in there. I don't know if he hits the age category and that's the reason why not, or would you rather just stick them in that Celtic B team? Because I do imagine that the B team, Lewis Laird would be your man for this. If you don't follow him on Twitter, please do. Would have the same philosophy that the Celtic first team try to implement?
Yeah, there are rumours that they're sort of basically trying to play Ange ball, which is good to see. I'm hoping that is, that becomes the main philosophy of the football club at all levels for the next 5 or 10 years, because it's working for us and it's entertaining to watch. I think any player trying to break through from the B team or the under-21s or whatever you call it into the first team, it's always going to be difficult, and there's probably only ever going to be maybe one, maybe two guys per season. You're not going to get a Kieran Tierney every time, you're not going to get a Callum McGregor every time, even for Callum McGregor. He went out on loan in 2013, and I don't think you could really call him a regular starter until 2017. And look at him now, he's Celtic captain. In my opinion, the best player in Scotland. So it shows you that it can work, but it's just a bit difficult. I think also as a striker, it's probably hardest because it's arguably your most important position. If Kyogo's playing well and you're 6 points behind in the league and every game's a must-win game, the manager isn't going to be very tempted to fire 18-year-old Joey Dawson up top. So I think, don't know if it's necessarily Queen's Park. I know we like to send a lot of players out there, and they're a promising club.
Why.
I'm sure there's some connection that none of us know about. It doesn't have to be Queen's Park. It could be, back to Scunthorpe or something, But I think a loan is probably the best move for people at that age. I was going to say to toughen them up, but he looks physically ready for the SPFL, in my opinion. Maybe just to get minutes against other pros who are that size, that level. And just hope he does well for Celtic and hope he has a wonderful career.
So on that same breath, Patrick, one of the comments coming in here again, Regular Tuesday contributor Lanky67 is saying, looks like Mikey will be out on loan next month. Dundee United and Aberdeen are looking at him. That was something, Lawrence, that's came out in the press. Well, obviously we've spoken about wingers there. We've spoken about Abada, Jota, Maida possibly coming in, James Forrest, Karamoko Dembele. Where does Mikey Johnson fit into all of this? Because we've seen him feature for Ange. Came in that night at Easter Road and played very well. He's played in the cup final starting for us. A lot of people were giving him a lot of stick after the game at St Mirren. Does he still have a future just now with Ange Postecoglou, or do you think you might send him out and loan for 6 months just to give him that consistent run of game time? Because I think that's been something that's majorly lacked in Mikey Johnson's game time. Not Ange Postecoglou's fault. He's just not had that consistent run of games, and I don't think that's did him any good. And that's the same with Tony Ralston. We saw how much a lack of game time he'd had when he first broke into that Celtic team. Would a move to Dundee United or Aberdeen suit a player like Mikey Johnson?
Listen, he definitely needs game time, but I'd be worried about putting anyone out on loan. The amount of injuries we've got and the effects of COVID going forward, you never know who you're going to have to call in. So Johnson's starting and buy players again. He's always got 2 players on him. He seems to be beating with fun, but he's needing to get a bit better with his crossing and his shooting. He could really do with a goal. I think first 2 seasons he came in, he was a goal every 4 games, both seasons. I think it was something like 6 and 24 and 6 and 25 or 6 and 26. So I wouldn't be in a rush to put him out on loan this season. We've had far too many injuries, and the squad's kind of threadbare. I know we're expecting to make some signings that will give us some more cover, but just with the number of injuries we've had, I think what we're going to need kind of everybody at the club. Tony Ralston was out on loan at St Johnstone and Dundee United. I'm not too sure that either of those loans really suited him. So Mikey might do better there, rather than playing with teams that have got 11 men behind the ball. It might open up more for him. But at the same time, I think he's still contributing. I thought he did a decent game in the cup final. So I think he's improving. He could really do with a goal just to kind of lift his spirits. He seems to have become the whipping boy just now, and I'm not too sure why. He's a young player. Yeah, he could do with a goal, but I think he's still contributing to the team. And yeah, I'd keep a hold of him for the rest of the season. But for too many injuries, and we don't know how COVID's going to affect the squad going forward, I think we're going to need everybody at the club.
Yeah, and Patrick, that is something that Celtic fans do quite well. Is whenever you get a youth player into the team, they're usually the first to get it tight. Stephen Welsh was one of those guys last season. This point coming in from our man behind the keys, Paul, I think is saying here, Christie, McGregor, are all in the loan deal as part of their development. Michael Johnson still has a long contract for Celtic. I think it's up in 2024 or 25. It is a long way to go and could benefit from 12 months away. Obviously, Christie up to Aberdeen, Patrick McGregor down to Notts County. Obviously, Jack Grealish down there, and Chris Ayer at Kilmarnock. During that time when Chris was at Kilmarnock, he was in at Celtic Park every week working with Celtic coaches to look at his development, see where he was getting things wrong, and that's really what solidified him as a centre half. Is it a worth and a risk worth taking just now? As Lawrence touches on there, injuries COVID wise, that in the long term, if we get Michael Johnson out just now to one of the suitors in the league, even Hibs, I think Sean Maloney would be a great help for him as a coach. If we do get him out to one of these clubs, that we could possibly see his career turn round a wee bit more, and that confidence that he maybe needs. Lawrence does touch on Ralston at United and St Johnstone, which is something to consider. Obviously, those teams are going to leak a lot more goals. Ralston naturally as a full back, but Johnson, if he went to one of those kind of teams that are going to be challenging in the top 6, we might see him kick on a wee bit more with a consistent run of games if he keeps himself fit.
Yeah, I think he needs game time. I'm not sure, if he stays for the rest of this season and doesn't go out on loan, he might play until mid-February as the first choice left winger. But then after that, you've got Maeda and Jota. So would he get much game time beyond the middle of February? Then if he goes out on loan and we leave ourselves short, you've effectively, I think you've only got really Maeda out in the left wing for about a month, because I don't think Jota will be back until February. I'm pretty sure. I think it's fairly long term, Jota's now. He'll be at least a month. So, I mean,
Hatate's there as a left wing option as well.
Oh, aye, so he is. He can play left wing. I'm just thinking of him as a midfield player. I think he could.
And this is it, buy players for one position, mate. Don't worry about it.
I think he could do a goal. To be fair, if he scored in the first minute against Hibs on the 17th of January, I think that would do him. But I think he's getting better. I think he had a good game against Ferencváros at home, and then he was having sort of nightmare after nightmare. I thought he played well against Motherwell. Thought he played okay in the cup final. I didn't think he done too bad at Paisley. Everyone was off form. Everyone was off their mark. And with wingers especially, they're the guys that need to take the risks and try and beat a man and put a cross in. The only worry is he's getting better and he's still not good enough. He just needs to keep on trying to get better, contribute to the team. Against in our final Europa League game, we won 3-1. I think it was 3-1. 3-2, sorry. He puts a great cross in for Ewan Henderson. He's 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper, decides to square it and totally fluffs the chance. So he should have had a goal and assist that game, but he ends up with a regret instead. So I think he needs game time. But for Celtic, if you're putting Celtic first, I think you need to keep him because you're limiting yourself with options if you put him out on loan.
Yeah, I think there's going to need to be a balance struck there, and if the move is right, possibly. But again, I think Lawrence hits the nail on the head there with COVID and injuries. It might be just the case that we do need to keep him at the club because we're so short. But again, we'll just wait and see in that one. But Red Scotland again, regular Tuesday. Contributors coming in here to say, does the impressive Scott Robertson return to Celtic from loan in January? And if so, does he push for a place? I'm going to fire that one over to you, Lawrence. Talking about loan deals there, Scott Robertson's went down to Crewe and he's, playing out his skin every week. If you look at anything from the Crewe match reports, which again, Lewis there's been well on top on, he's been one of the standout players there. And when you're balancing that up in midfield, maybe a guy like Ismail Soro might be the guy that makes way if Scott Robertson does come back into the squad, and he might be one of the guys that departs the club.
Listen, no doubt that Soro would make way for Robertson, but Soro's so far away from the team, I don't think it'd do Robertson any good coming back. We're really well covered at the sixth position, aren't we? We've got McCarthy, Beaton, McGregor. Can all play it really well. I think, if Robertson's coming in, he'd push Soro further down, but he's still fourth choice for that position. His loan deal was going well. I just think it'd be wrong to bring him back because we're just so well covered in that position just now. I mean, what's the likelihood of Soro playing between now and the end of the season? Because that's the boy that he's pushing out, isn't it? And I think it's really unlikely. I will leave Robertson out there for his development. I know it kind of goes against what I'm saying with Mikey, but Mike is, he's already in the squad. I think maybe he's only got no goals, one assist this season, but I think the last few weeks he's been getting better. So for me, I wouldn't bring Robertson back. I would leave him out there because he's not going to push McCarthy, Beaton or McGregor out of that number 6 position. So in reality, if we bring him back, how much game times are you going to get? I think leave him to the end of the season and then bring him back. But Soro's probably someone that we could do with moving on. His fourth choice. If Robertson's back at the club, his fifth choice for the number 6 position. I think it's just either out on a loan or sell him, get something back in. I'm not too sure who else in the squad we could realistically move out. Maybe Julian out on loan, because goodness knows what kind of player he's going to be when he comes back. He's been out for so long. I think he's going to need game time, and I don't think we're going to be playing risky centre halves, are we? Or a boy that's not played for so long. But I wouldn't recall Robertson. I just think we're really well covered at the 6th position, so I would leave him to complete his loan for the season. But on that, I'd probably try and move Soro this window.
Yeah, Patrick Adaguchi's another one that I think can come in there and plays the holding midfielder too, so we're getting another option in there. One of the comments coming in here is saying that Soro would benefit from a loan deal, possibly offload Bolingoli and Ajeti to free up wages. Would it be a loan for you for Soro, or would it be a permanent move? Because I think, as Lawrence touches on, when we've got that many players in that position, it might just be a case of trying to get him out the door if the price is obviously right. I think we're going to struggle to offload Ajeti in this window due to the injury now. I don't think he's going to leave Celtic in January. I think he'll need to wait till the summer for Albion Ajeti, in my opinion, just due to that injury. I don't think anybody will touch him. What's your thoughts on that, Patrick?
I think, the other player mentioned there, Bolingoli, so far down the pecking order. I think he played 2 games in the space of 3 or 4 weeks, and you thought, is the manager trying to get back up to fitness or get back in the squad? And he didn't even play that badly. I think it was Livingston in the middle. He played okay. He wasn't a star performer, but he played all right. I don't see where he fits in. Liam Scales is playing regularly. The manager's came out and said he quite likes Greg Taylor. Adam Montgomery's coming on in a lot of games and played a lot of September and October. I think you can offload Bolingoli. So he obviously had those couple of months where he was like the saviour along with Turnbull last season, and then towards the end we realised that he wasn't of the same quality, and he's barely had a look in this season. As you two have said, McGregor's ahead of him, Beaton, McCarthy. If Robertson were to come back, he's probably ahead of him as well. You've got Idaguchi in that position as well. I think he's a defensive midfielder. You've got so many players now that are ahead of Soro. I think he's one that you can try and move on. I think Barkas is probably another one that you can look to move on as well. It's weird being so light in some positions and yet so stacked in other positions. You know, you're looking at the team and thinking, oh, who comes in for Turnbull, without realising you've actually got, you know, guys like Ewan Henderson, guys like Hatate coming in. You've actually got quite a lot of options, just unproven and guys that you can't necessarily rely on. But you do have a lot of options in these positions. So yes, I would move Soro and try and get something permanent if you can. Not too sure about a loan because, you know, I'm talking about how many options we have, but you just never know when an injury crisis is going to hit. So if we can't sell him, I would just keep him around the place. But if you can get money from him, I'd move him on.
Yeah, there's a lot of chat just now going on about Chris Julian in the comments. I know you've touched on their loan deal, Lawrence. Carl Starfelt, I think, is attracting attention again from Celtic fans due to his past 3 performances. I did say last week, one game doesn't make you a bad player. It certainly does know it in the cup final. But again, I think, you know, the mistake at the weekend again, people are starting to ask questions about him. If Julian does come back, and it's a big if because it seemed as though maybe we were all getting false hope that he was going to come back just with the stuff he was putting out in his socials. You think Celtic are just, you know, patiently waiting, giving it week after week and not wanting to rush him back just in case he's out for even longer? It was a horrendous injury which he suffered against Dundee United. We don't need to go into it again. We know what happens. But are Celtic just really being cautious here with the amount of time that it's taken now? Because I think we're approaching a year now since that injury against Dundee United. We know everything that's happened since then. Are we just biding our time? Or do you think that Julian might be one of the guys that makes way at Celtic?
Listen, Chris was part of our Europa League squad, and Bolingoli wasn't. So that tells you how when we were expecting him back. We actually, expecting him to be back to play the Europa League, and I'm not too sure what's going on with him. It seems, every week, he'll be back next week. I think he's back almost in full training. I don't know he's back running, but he's been out for a year. It's going to take him a while to get up to speed, and I think he could probably be, if he is back fit, he could probably benefit with get out on loan just to get his games up. Starfelt, his performances have dipped in the last 3 games, but he's still, an integral part of the best defence in Scotland this season. So I don't think he's done anything to deserve getting dropped. You've got Stephen Welsh there that's, adequate backup. Arguably, Dane Murray came in at the beginning of the season and put in a good performance. So I think Julian's, goodness knows when he's going to be back. We expected him back for the Europa League, which was months ago. He's not back. If he is back fit now, we've got 18 league games left. How long would it take him to force his way back into that team and get up to speed? It's one position, centre half. You don't really want to put someone in that's really rusty. You need to be, 2 or 3 goals up before you give him any game time. I think he could probably benefit from getting out on loan. He's probably one of the better played players. If he goes out on loan and proves his sell again, we might be looking to move him on. I know we've been linked with Suter, but if you're bringing him in, how many centre halves we're going to need. So he's earning a lot.
Injury record a lot.
Aye, but listen, he's pulling a big wage from us. It might be time just to move him on. So either way, he's going to need to play before anyone's going to buy him. No one's going to buy a player that's been out for a year injured. So he's going to need game time, and I don't think he's going to get it with us this season. So if he is back sometime in the next few weeks, when the transfer window's open, I'd try and get him a loan move to get some game time. But whether another club's going to be willing to pay any of his wages or a loan fee for a guy that's not played in a year, we may have to put him out without a loan fee and still play a lot of his wages. But I think would be in our interest to get some games in his legs elsewhere just now on a loan, with a view to either next season him coming back in and if he's shown that he's back to his best, either coming back in and being part of the team or moving on.
Yeah, I think that'd certainly be if he was to go out and loan any of it, maybe back to his native France in Ligue 1. Patrick would maybe be the place for him to go. do you still see him having a future? I mean, we're talking about a guy here who wasn't cheap by any means. He was £7 million. Celtic's record defensive transfer purchase. Do you think it's a guy Ange might look at? Because we know he can certainly play from out the back. I know he's not a hard man, as a lot of people will remind us. He was tormented by Lyndon Dykes. He probably is still having nightmares about Dykes at the Tony Macaroni up against them. But we know he could play football. He's got a lot of big goals for Celtic. The late goal against Lazio, the late goal in the cup final. There was not the late goal in the cup final. The offside goal in the cup final. Which again, I'm still annoying a lot of people. But so we know he can score big goals. We know he likes a header. Could he be a man for Ange Postecoglou? I think he would certainly suit the system, but it's just, I think there's probably Lawrence touches on there, whether we can get him up to speed and actually get him into the team if he has to come back.
It's whether he suits the system or not. I think he's been out for a year, so it's whether he comes back as the same player. I'm not sure when his birthday is, but we did sign him when he was 26, so in the summer he'll be 29. So I think both the club and him need to make a decision about where his future is, because I think he's only got 18 months left in his deal. So it's either we sell him this summer or he signs a deal and becomes a mainstay in Ange's system. The board might say to Ange, look, you've got X amount to spend. You can either sign Carter Vickers for 6 or just keep Julian and try and implement him into your system. You don't know. I'd like us to sign Carter Vickers and keep Julian personally, because I think you then get 3 top quality centre halves, and then Welsh is
developing one
as a fourth. And even with our injury record, I think that should be adequate cover, especially when you've got Dane Murray as well behind them. I'd like us to keep Julian. I mean, I like him as a player, and I think he's quite good as well. If he has to move on, he has to move on. I can't see us getting the 7.5 or the 7 that we spent on him, if I'm being honest.
No chance.
I don't think a loan would work either, if I'm being honest. As I said, he's 29. I'm not sure whether he'd be totally up for that as a 29-year-old. He probably thinks he's quite established as a player. I think he'll be looking for a permanent move if he's going to move on at all. So it's just interesting. These are all hypotheticals, because until he plays his first game back, you just don't know. If Ange decides to surprise us and plays him against Tibbs, that'd be brilliant, I think, because a good first game back, and hopefully can play.
Yeah. Hopefully the Celtic photographer's been told, don't take any pictures for him. We'll just keep it in silence. It is a bit of a strange situation with Lawrence, because I saw last night, Manchester United, before their game kicked off at St James's Park, put out a big report about why Lindelof was missing from the team. It was a COVID issue, but they were keeping their fans right. And instead of there being speculation around the player, just completely killing it off and saying this is this. Celtic, definitely know Celtic don't like to do their business out in the open. Ange's kept the old card close to the chest when it's came to some big games. Leverkusen in the cup final. Obviously Leverkusen with McGregor and Kyogo in the cup final. With Kyogo, he likes to spring a surprise upon us. Joe Weir's come in the comments to ask if we have any insight into business being done. Unfortunately not. We're not privy to any insight. We just read the same stuff and listen to the same stuff as you. It looks as if these players, though, from our perspective, are probably going to be a stick on when they're coming into Celtic. And if 3 players from the G League didn't arrive, I'd be very, very surprised at this moment in time, just due to the longevity of the linkage, how quick the linkage came about, and reports from Japan, Patrick, which are internal reports from Japanese media. They're not relying on UK media to make these reports up. We've already seen Yokohama Marinos go out and set up their potential replacement for Maeda. So I would certainly suggest he's all but done. Lawrence, something you've touched on though a lot is the gap in the window here. Obviously, the winter break's been brought forward due to the fact we want to get fans at the stadium, not for any other reason, as Ange Postecoglou reminded us all at the weekend. That's just after Alan McGregor was trying to string a sentence together. So, we've got a gap here in the window to try and get these players in. But with COVID, quarantine and stuff, so with Carl Starfelt, How important is it to get these deals done quick? Because even though we've got a bit of time before we play Hibs, we know what it's like. By the time you get guys in, we're probably going to be 10 days down with quarantine. It'd be great to think that they're all sitting in a hotel room in London and now doing press-ups. Don't know if that's the case. But just to get them right up to speed and up to Lennoxtown to get into, climatised to the sunny conditions, which I'm sure will be, there at Lennoxtown in January time and get them into that Ange Postecoglou squad.
Yeah, I think it's important to get them in just to see the way that we want to play. I mean, the guys have just finished a full season, so their fitness should be there. So we're not too worried about, some of the boys that came in earlier said, well, they didn't have a pre-season, it's fitness that's held them back. These boys should be where they need to be in terms of fitness. It's just fitting into the team and learning whatever drills Ange's want to show them and how to play. The quicker they come in, the better. It's 10 days isolation. So you'd be looking, 7th, 8th of January joining up, and who knows what restrictions will be in place then. But hopefully, they're straight into the squad and into training. Although it won't be at the Dubai camp this year. They will have to make do with Lennoxtown. We're crying out for players. I think the break coming early, hopefully a lot of the players that have been injured will be back. Yakimakis, there was an update in him. So he should be back by then. Yeah, we've really got to get these boys in beginning of the transfer window. So hopefully we're announcing something, next week in time for the show. We could be coming on and talking about, the 3 signings have been announced and done. But going back to the Julian thing, I think it said it all where we expected him to be, the fact we put him in the Europa League squad. That's when Celtic expected him back. So I think maybe Celtic's feeling a bit of frustration here of the medical team expecting him back, and he's never quite made it back himself, whether he just doesn't feel ready or what it is. But the looks of things, the medical team's advice was he would be back for Europa League. That's why we put him in the squad. We're now months after that, and it doesn't seem to be any closer, does he? Is always he'll be back. But no, new signings, get them in sooner rather than later. But COVID's probably, it might only be 3 now, because there's no guarantee that we'll be back watching games by the time the Hibs game kicks off. It's obviously going to have an impact on us financially. So what kind of money's going to be there, I'm not too sure. I think the money's there for the 3 Japanese boys. Over and above that, if we are still not in stadiums, it's going to impact every team in the country. Yeah, not having that match day revenue. I think some clubs may struggle to make it to season book renewal time, if that's the case.
Yeah, or might need to sell a player that they don't want to sell. In another case, I think we saw a lot of that in the last window, Lawrence, and we saw clubs having to let players go just to kind of balance the book up. Patrick, just on signings, going to need you to kill this speculation. Daniel's coming in to say that I must know stuff being Big Ange's bestie. I don't know anything. I just bump into him at times, and that's it. Patrick, you'll need to confirm this for me. Do I tell you anything?
Nothing. He keeps it all to himself.
Not at all. I don't know anything. I don't know. Not a clue. I only read the same thing as you. So, yep. I just hope that I'm sure he's well ahead of a track with this, and I'm sure his agent and him are working very hard to get deals done, which I'm sure will come in the door. I think he, I think something to touch on. We've not spoke about yet. We actually said last week we were talking about the possible insecurity at the club by not having a permanent CEO. Patrick, you said, we don't know how long this process takes, and bang, out the blue it happens again. I knew absolutely nothing about that one before I start getting accusations being told that Big Ange's slipping things to me. It's not happening. But, what does that say? Michael Nicholson, I think, can really prove himself in terms of footballing sense here. We've got everything that's went in the past with the whole Higgins debacle. But in terms of the footballing sense, Patrick can really prove himself here if he gets the bodies in January, because we've not really had a successful January winter transfer window since Robbie Keane signed for the club.
I don't know about that. I think Armstrong and Mackay-Steven came in that winter window, didn't they?
Sorry, that happened. I'm forgetting about that one. You're right.
And of course, you have the one.
You're right in that one.
The Bio came in. He was a fantastic player for us, wasn't he?
Klamalan Sorrow.
I think I said Sorrow was good for a couple of months. I think I said last week that, we'll see at the end of the season whether Nicholson gets the job or not, and I think within 3 days he's announced as the permanent CEO. I think he can make a very good early impression by signing a bunch of players in January, because I think we've seen with Ange that the system works. So if he's got enough quality and depth, I think we will win the league. And if we win the league, we get £30 million from the Champions League. And it's just a matter of dominating, both on the park and financially off the park. Because I think if we were to win the league, it sets other teams in the league back financially. And whoever goes on to win the league gets a massive financial springboard. And I think Nicholson needs to make sure that doesn't happen, personally, because it's too important for us, I think. It's less of a gamble this year because you don't have the qualifiers. If we sign good players, the system works. So we're going to win the league if we sign good players. We might win the league if we don't sign good players. But the more good players we sign, the less of a gamble it is. So I'm getting overly simplistic here, but he could make a very good early impression by having a good January window. And now that the Higgins debacle is behind us, just keep the PR stuff off the park to a minimum. Don't start any unnecessary conflicts. Just do your business quietly, stick up for the club, and try and do your best. And hopefully we'll have a successful reign as CEO.
Yeah, well, we really hope so, because a successful reign as CEO translates into silverware and success at the football club, and that's what we all crave and want at Celtic. Lawrence, to try and close up here, it's going to be the last time that we're on in 2021. It's been a real tumultuous time. We kicked off the year with a derby defeat at Ibrox, a complete disaster, nightmare trip to Dubai. We were still locked in our houses watching Celtic not play a very stylish, attractive style of football. We then lost our permanent manager, John Kennedy, came in. We chased Eddie Howe for 4 months. We eventually then got our man, and we've had real turning points under Ange Postecoglou. What is your hopes for 2022? I don't think we could have imagined such a mental 2021. I was still optimistic going into that derby game, probably one of very few that were optimistic going into that derby games. But so what's your hopes for 2022? And I think for me the standout was obviously getting that first League Cup back under Ange for 2021 best Celtic moment. Just really good to see us bring silverware back, and I think that's something that's really important to consider. 6 points is not a mountain in the league. We've got our first silverware. We've got some form of European football after Christmas, which is a long way away from having a deal completely collapse with your candidate number one, and to come so far with, as Ange said, he doesn't know where he was in the list, but he's here to do a job, and he's certainly doing that job very well.
Listen, I'm hoping Michael Nicholson is successful a CEO as Peter Lawwell was. As much as perhaps Peter's not popular now, he definitely delivered some amount of trophies for us. And if we get that kind of percentage trophy return under Michael Nicholson, it'll be brilliant. I'm hoping too much to sign ahead of recruitment. It's now looking like, we're going to go into a second transfer window without a head of recruitment, but a strange one. Hopefully Ange keeps developing the team. Jared over and Boys Down Under, and Dan told us the first season is a bit up and down. It's the second season this team will really kick on. Hopefully we bring the Japanese boys in and have a good transfer window. I'm looking at May, having 4 trophies in the cabinet would be ideal. Winning back the league, the Scottish Cup, the inaugural conference, and obviously we've already got the League Cup. I know Ryan Christie was in the paper saying it was crazy standards to set, where if we didn't win a treble, it wasn't successful. I'm hoping that Ange delivers a quadruple in his first season in charge.
Patrick, we do like one-off trophies. It is the Celtic way of doing things. Coronation Cups, St Mungo Cups, Empire Exhibition Cups. Possibly the conference could be one to add to that. I think Robert McCune's bang on here, though. After such a mental year, it's mental how upbeat we all are. Thank you, Ange. And Martin's came in here, again, Axom, all around the world. Thank you to everybody that's listened to us this year. We hope you're still with us next year. and he's all the way from Melbourne. And we've got a lot to thank the Aussies for this year, Patrick, because I think without them, we wouldn't be too optimistic heading into 2022. But what was your thoughts been in 2021? As I said, there's been very much so highs and lows in 2021, but it looks as if we're back in the right path, and we hopefully can have a successful January transfer window to kick off 2022 and come back all guns blazing for these next round of fixtures.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just want to touch on that thing Lawrence said about Ryan Christie. I didn't realise he said that. That's the first time I've heard that. It's disappointing because Frimpong said something similar, and these people obviously don't realise that, we think, and in my opinion, we are the biggest team in Scotland, we're the best team in Scotland. So to go into every single game individually and think that you should win, I don't think that those standards are too high personally. And if you do go into every single game as a favourite, you should win, and therefore you should win a treble. So disappointing from Ryan Christie there. Still to score for Bournemouth, which is a shame. But I'm sure he's loving life in the south of England. No, I would agree with Lawrence. I think
the ball boys.
No, I don't think it's the ball boys. I think it's the garden sheds over the stand across the road that are picking up the balls. If they're not going in the sea.
And the lifeguards.
Anyway, the quadruple would be my aim personally. That might be a bit ambitious, but if Roma are the best team in the competition, which they allegedly are, then I think a bit of revenge against Mourinho in the final would be so sweet. I think it'd be brilliant. I think a really, really big aim, arguably more important than winning the Scottish Cup this season, is to beat Bodo Glimt over two legs, because we haven't won a knockout tie. By that point, it'll be 18 years, and you need to break that duck. I think after Copenhagen, everyone was going home thinking, it's deja vu, 3 years in a row. It's getting easier, and we're constantly going out of Europe at this stage. Things have to change, and I think Bodo Glimt's probably the best opportunity you're going to get, unless we repeat the cycle next year. But I think, give the Conference League our best shot. I know we'll be in a title race, but I don't think the Scottish Cup's that important. If you're going for a treble, you can focus on the Conference League. So that'd be my focus. Beat Bodo Glimt and win the league.
Yep, and just to see this wee conversations going on in the chat here, if it's going to happen, I'm in for this one. And Patrick, you up for a trip to Oz if we're getting invited over there? Lawrence, you're always up for a trip. I don't even need to ask you.
Yeah, doesn't matter, mate.
Lawrence half the landlords in Melbourne.
I'll go anywhere. You know that.
We know.
Even Zaire.
Yep. Well, exactly. And then on that, over and over, we hopefully be back following Celtic in 2022. Thanks to everybody who's joined us this year. All the best for the new year. We will see you in 2022. And thank you for tuning in to watch a Celtic State of Mind on this Tuesday afternoon.